Hello. Welcome to anyone that watches this live or that watches it later. I'm here today with Sean Watkins, the owner and proprietor of Athenaeum Comic Art. We're here celebrating 3 years of Athenium, and very exciting on Sean's channel, Athenaeum Comic Art. I think that you'll find it on
That's
YouTube.
just a
You can just
channel.
type that
Yeah,
in.
if you can spell Athenium.
There you go, which is right here on his screen. If you check out his channel, he has a chat that Sean and I did with Felix Liu of Felix Comic Art. He had one with Avi, is it Ehrlich?
Ehrlich, yeah.
Yeah, Avi Ehrlich of Silver Sprocket. He has an upcoming chat with Nicole Gu, one of his amazing artists. And then we're here on my channel to talk to Noah Van Sciver, one of my favorite cartoonists. Noah has a lot of accolades, and I have a bunch of them listed here, but I'll keep it short. He has the long-running Blammo anthology. He's probably most known to comics people for his Fonte Bukowski series from Fantagraphics, all highly recommended. From Abrams, he had Joseph Smith and the Mormons, a book that Noah is very proud of, and I'm sure we'll get into that a little bit here. And he also has his own little publishing imprint called Envious Editions. Is that noahvansciver.bigcartel.com?
Yeah,
Noah?
that's right. I think so, yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, go look and see what he has available. Some great stuff there. And Noah also has a YouTube channel. We're just a bunch of YouTubers over here. And Noah does interviews with cartoonists. Recently, he's had Tony Millionaire and Bill Morrison. Both very interesting. Really enjoyed the Bill Morrison chat because he's a guy that I knew his name but didn't know anything about him. So that was pretty cool to learn about his singular journey in comics, especially nowadays when nobody has any sort of security. He seems to have carved out a pretty nice path for himself.
Yeah, I said in the beginning of that, I said, you're an interesting case because you're one of the only cartoonists I can think of who's always had health insurance.
Yeah, unless you're like the art director at Marvel or something.
Yeah.
Even then, who knows?
Yeah.
So we didn't have a whole lot of structure here for this chat today. Like I said, we're celebrating Sean's 3-year anniversary at Athenium, and Noah was kind enough to get roped into this. And we do have a project that we'll talk about in a little bit. But first, I kind of wanted to ask about how Noah came to be on the Athenium roster. I don't know if either one of you wants to speak to that.
That's a good question. I'll jump in, Noah. It's funny. I'm kind of a late to Noah fan, mostly because I wasn't very well read before getting into the indie space maybe 10 years ago. And what's funny is I think I owe Colin for introducing me to Noah's work, which I fell in love with immediately. I forget which book I was reading, but I was reading one of your books, Noah, in bed while Deborah was asleep. And I was laughing so loud. She got so angry at me. And I was like, this is the best thing I've ever read. So I was really excited about that. And I think maybe through your encouragement, Colin, when I was first starting Athenium, back when I only had maybe 5 or 6 folks, maybe a little bit more. I reached out to Noah to see if he would be interested in kind of working with me. It took a little while for us to kind of connect, but we've had a pretty successful run thus far.
Yeah, that's right. I remember you reaching. It was a long time ago. It feels like to me. You first reached out to me, but I just actually sent you some more pages yesterday, so you should be getting a package from me in the mail soon.
It's always fun. Noah doesn't always tell me what he's sending me, so it's always like Christmas when I open it up, and sometimes I don't even know where the pages are coming from, but they're always beautiful, and folks get really excited about them. I think this batch is for. I guess we should mention that as well, which is part of the reason that we are chatting today is that we haven't really formally announced it. I may have mention it on social media here or there. But we're going to have a gallery show at Partners and Son in Philadelphia on Friday, October 11th. Where we're going to be celebrating Noah's work. So those originals are going to be up there. Noah can speak. I don't know what all of them will be. I've seen some of them, I think, through the scans. But we're going to have a reading that night. And Colin is going to be there to interview Noah as well. So we're really excited about celebrating Noah's work. I think we should probably talk about kind of how we got to that space too, Colin, and kind of our mutual love of Noah's work, and kind of why we're doing the other project that's connected to the show. But we hope that folks can make it. It's right. It's kind of the opening to the Philly Comics Expo, which will be the following day. If you haven't had a chance to visit Partners and Son, I think it's one of the best indie comic shop in the country. It's a beautiful space, and Gina and Tom just are such a champion of indie and small press comics. So we're really excited about it. Hope folks can make it to the show.
I'm looking forward to it, because when I got into comics through, like, I was like trying to be a painter, so I always wanted to have like sort of a show, like an exhibit. I've never been able to pull it off. So I feel like this is the first time that I'm doing something like this. That's always been like a kind of a dream of mine. So I'm really excited about actually that night and this whole event and stuff. I mean,
how did the show come to be? I know, Sean, you had one there last year with another artist, right?
With MS Harkness and Caroline Cash, actually.
Yes, that's great.
Yeah. So basically Sean just set it up.
Yeah, I think a lot of things kind of came together in the sense of, Athenium. I've been really excited about doing in-person events, and I haven't been able to table as much at small press shows because they kind of focus on the artists, and they don't have as much room for art reps. And so I've kind of decided, similarly to the way that I live my life in other ways, just kind of build my own path forward, and doing these shows where we can really celebrate the artist as well as the physical pieces of art. I think it elevates the work, and folks start talking about it in different ways, and we kind of look at it more as a piece of fine art, right? And I think I'm really excited that we're able to partner with Noah on this, because I think his work should be celebrated. And I think that's how Colin and I came together with an art book that Colin, I've sort of tertiary to all of it, but Colin and his friend Alex have put together for the show is kind of in response to that as well. I think celebrating the form and celebrating Noah's work. But Colin, do you want to talk? Oh, sorry, no, go ahead.
I just looked at that, by the way, when I was out running errands. I was like on my phone looking at the PDF of it. It looks awesome, guys. It's great. It's really going to be terrific. So
glad to hear that.
I was happy to let my wife look at some of it too.
It's real. It's a real book.
Yeah, almost real. Noah, how did you choose the art, or was there a process for the exhibit, or how many pieces are going to be in it? Do you know?
Well, I just kind of, I was looking for stuff that was, when I remember, sort of like bigger pieces that kind of fit as like that worked as like one sort of image. So like a lot of splash pages, or like a comic with like panels that all kind of work together as one, kind of thinking more like what would look good on a wall,
Sure.
rather than just like the kind of storytelling pages, which are a little trickier on a wall. So I was looking for stuff like that. And I think there's like, I can't remember how many I sent to you, Sean, to be honest. I just went through my flat file and was like, all right, I think this looks pretty good. This looks pretty good. I think that there's like a cover for the Johnny Appleseed book that I did is in there.
Nice.
Like a Maple Terrace cover is in there and stuff like that, like the French edition ones. And then I also just like put together a bunch of stuff in an envelope that you could just sell on the Athenium website as well. That's not involved in the show. It's not a part of the show. So
are you planning to sell the stuff that's in the show, or is it just?
No, I don't think so. I think I'm going to keep the stuff because I think most of it is stuff that I think has like sentimental value. Like I remember, I think the Remy page is in there.
Yeah, it's a great page.
I'm being born. I want to hold on to that one. You know?
Yeah,
things like that. I think there's some Blammo covers in there, which I'm not too keen on selling. You know, so. Yeah.
Well, it's what's nice with working with Gina and Tom, who I believe ran a gallery in New York at one point, or somewhere they ran a gallery. In working with them in the past, they have, you know, that kind of fine art eye, and so they encourage us to just send them a lot of pages, and they'll be able to kind of work it onto their walls in ways that make most sense with the art and the physical space. So it's really nice to be able to trust folks to do justice to the art. And if you know, if folks have been to Partners in Sun and seen their other shows, it's very, very well put together, and there's a lot of thought that goes into it. So it's great to have that.
Well, I was thinking also, like, this is early enough that if there's other things that you know, I still have time to like send more things. We can like basically start more of a discussion about what we want in there, like what do we want to look like or something like that.
Yeah.
You know, act accordingly.
You all are seeing this organically happen while we're chatting.
Yeah, I mean, this is the first time I've ever. Nobody treats me with respect, so all this is like jarring to me. Like, me? Stuff on the wall? All right.
You say that, but it's just whenever I talk to other cartoonists, they have so much respect for the work that you've done. You're so prolific in how much you've produced and the quality of which you produce your books, your independent self-published stuff, working with a variety of publishers. Do you feel that prolificness? Is that just like kind of your kind of working style?
That's just my working style. But I mean, like, cartoonists are very nice people and stuff. But like like I've never had, like, for example, when I got the new issue of Canon, there was like an article written about my work in there, and I've never had something like that before. So that's what I mean. Like, nobody ever like there's never any like academic papers written about my comics or anything like that. So so when I get some kind of special attention paid to my work like this, I'm like me, like I'm just doing my thing over here, and I feel like I have my little group of readers, and I'm working on stuff for them. Like, I'm just trying to give them more stuff that they'll like, and that's all I'm really thinking about. I don't think that's like any other kind of, nobody else outside of that group is going to appreciate what I'm working on. So.
Well, and I mean that's a good segue perhaps to talk about the project. Colin, do you want to talk a little bit about the book that you all are putting together?
Sure. So all of this happened a while ago, and it's now a little fuzzy. I do remember that it was originally my idea, and I went to my friend Alex Eklund, that I do Canon with. I assume anyone watching this channel has heard me blather on about my zine a little bit, even though I'm pretty allergic to self-promotion, but I know I've shown it a couple times. New issues out, canonzine.bigcartel.com. There's 4 issues so far. Mostly dedicated to the esoteric and unknown, but we do have guys like Noah. MS Harkness was interviewed in the 2nd issue. Beth Hetland from Fantagraphics in the new issue. So there are some people. What's that?
Beth Hetland is like the new star cartoonist.
She's really put herself out there.
Amazing.
She's toured everywhere. She's like the Grateful Dead or something. She's
That's
every city in America.
I thought Tender was fantastic too.
Sure.
Too.
Yeah, I'd love to talk to her. YouTube channels.
Yeah, she'd be great to talk to you for sure. Yeah, so I floated the idea to Alex about the idea of us maybe putting a book together, mostly for the learning process. And when I heard that Noah was going to have a gallery show far enough away that it seemed like maybe we could actually make something, I remember talking to Sean about it, and Sean went to Noah about it. And so, yeah, we've all kind of stumbled in the dark together, I think, trying to put something together. And we're now at the end stage. We'll be sending it off to the printer soon, and so it has a few tweaks to make, but Sean and Noah have seen the rough draft. And,
so good.
And we're very happy with it. Alex has, I told Sean earlier today, Alex is the unsung hero. He really knocked it out on this book. He was very thoughtful. He was, trying to make he was looking at everything as a 2-page spread. He was really trying to think about things that were mentioned in, I did a small interview with Noah that's going to be in there. And he tried, if Noah was talking about something, he tried to have something appropriate above it. There's an essay by Andrew, is it Kunka?
Yeah, Kunka.
Kunka. I don't want to mispronounce his name. He wrote a nice essay about Noah. And yeah, so Alex really went out of his way to match up the images everywhere and be very thoughtful with how everything looked, try to have a really cohesive look to everything. So yeah, it's amazing considering we've been doing Canon for less than 2 years, and Alex had never done graphic design of any kind other than maybe just making printouts for his students, in high school. It's pretty amazing what he's taught himself so far. And yeah, we're really excited about this book. I'm very nervous about overselling it, but we think it's going to be good. And I hopefully it'll be a good tribute to Noah's work. It's kind of a mid-career retrospective. And yeah, it's not necessarily chronological, but it's sort of mostly chronological. Once again, that was part of the thought put into it. And yeah, it's going to be, it's high res scans, a lot of original art in there, stuff you can't see anywhere else, stuff that has now gone into private collections. So good luck, including a couple, I own the cover to Boring that's hanging on my wall. So,
oh, cool.
You're never going to see that again unless,
that's great.
Unless it gets borrowed for a show or something in 10 years. But
yeah, there's a lot of stuff. There's sketchbook stuff in there. Very kind of private, notebook. Like when I was first starting out as a cartoonist, I would carry around those composition notebooks because they're really cheap. They're $1, and then you can just draw in there and learn without feeling like it was low stakes, a low stakes way of becoming a cartoonist. So I would carry those around all the time and make little covers for them and stuff. And I made sure that I included some of those in the file for the book.
I'm so excited for it. I mean, I didn't even know until today that it's going to be in hardcover. I thought we had talked about it being just sort of like not a floppy, but a soft cover book. And it's just the quality, the content. I think that leads me to a question. We live in a digital age. And I think everyone in this room is very kind of fixated on the physical. What's special? Why would we do this, Colin? Why would we produce this book that, we're still talking about it, but I think the idea is we're going to produce a very print a very small number of copies, and that's going to be it. It's going to be really kind of a special thing that's meant to be read on paper. Why does that kind of attract you, Colin? But also Noah, you work mostly traditionally. I think floppies is still, that sort of independently produced comics are still a really important part of your art. I'd be curious to hear both of you talk about the physical thing of a comic or a book.
Oh, I'm traditional. I mean, I like that kind of cartooning as that kind of risk taking. I'm going to make a mark on this paper and I might mess it up, and mess it up. Either I have to figure out how to save it with whiteout, or I can just kind of incorporate that mistake into my style, and then that becomes my style. Or I don't like the idea that I could just delete something and do it over again. I like after I've labored away on something to actually have physical result, you know, like when you create like a beautiful page, it's like you have that beautiful page. That thing exists. It's a real object you just created. That's a really satisfying thing. And I'd be kind of curious about, like, to talk to younger cartoonists about that. Like, why would they work traditionally? Like, why would Caroline Cash work on paper? You know, and does she always work on paper?
Yeah. She does a few like fixing of spelling and things in Photoshop, but it's primarily on paper.
Yeah. So I don't know why any younger cartoonists would, unless they were like really admirers of cartooning, you know, of being a cartoonist. Because you know, if you're into like comics history or something like that, like you visit cartoon museums, it's all like it's all paper. You know, you want to be a part of that.
Well, I mean, obviously, we're sitting here with Sean. That's one good reason for people to do things on paper, is because then they have another thing to sell.
Right.
Not to be crass about it, but it is true that people value these objects, and you know, artists need all the income streams they can get. So for me, unless you're going to get so fast and efficient doing digital work, I don't really understand why people would forego having the object. But I mean, that's just,
Yeah.
I'm also an old guy talking, so what do I know? You know,
That's the other thing. But like, I can see that if you were like an illustrator and you were just cranking out illustrations to make money, I could see that, just doing it like on an iPad. Otherwise, you know.
I think speed has a lot to do with it, and you can do it anywhere, right? I mean, it is interesting though, because and this is all anecdotal, but I definitely work with some artists who have gone the digital route and are deciding they want to go back to traditional. And it's not, you know, I don't think it's just, no one is in this space thinking they're going to make a ton of money, even with their originals. Like, it's just not the case so much. You know, I think it's some of it's a nostalgia. Some of it, I think the process is just very different, and you get a different gratification from it. To Noah's point, there's a physical thing, you know, and I guess I'm middle-aged now, but I grew up in a time where, you know, I would put up art, posters, things on the wall, and that represented my identity. And I'd be excited to bring friends over to look at my, you know, DVD collection, look at my posters. This is who I am. And I feel like we're moving into this disposable world. Everything gets thrown out. Everything is sort of a digital file that can be corrupted, or someone, you know, Marvel can take your digital comic away in theory, if you know, they decide to, right? Wow. You know, it's the same with, you know, streaming services, right? If a movie you want to see doesn't exist, if they don't feel like that it's worth spending money on, it's not going to be streaming. And where are you going to find it? You got to find a physical copy, right? Yeah. So for me, I don't think we're ever going to go back to like 90s era, like bajillions of issues of comics being produced. But I think, you know, with the resurgence of like vinyl, who would have thought vinyl would come back? I think pockets of spaces are going to still want to have physical things. And I think for me, part of what I love, what we're all doing with this book, is that it's something, it's a way to celebrate and make unique, you know, of this experience of opening a book and being able to see these pages, right? You know, I think there is something to the egalitarianness of digital spaces where everyone can have access to things. But, you know, sometimes it's also nice to know that you have this one of whatever, 200 copies, one of 300 copies. There's something special about that. I don't know. It makes me excited.
Yeah.
Yeah. You know, to answer your question, well, first of all, let me say something. There's a comment here from Ray. I think we all know who Ray is. He's very active on Instagram. He has a YouTube channel as well. He's a huge Noah fan. Don't want to. He also owns a Noah original. I know.
Did he write an article for the new Canon?
Yeah, he's in every issue.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, Yeah, great guy. And I know he loves Noah's work. We've talked about Noah quite a bit over the years. But yeah, for me, I think one, I just like books. Obviously, if you look behind me, I own books. But two, I like original art, and you can't afford to buy every piece of original art you want. And this is going to be a great place to see a bunch of that stuff. And Noah was talking earlier about the zine covers. Some of these early Blammo pieces are in there. Those aren't the easiest things to come by. I know you did a Blammo collection, but that will be out of print, and these things just get harder and harder to find as we go further along. But for me, honestly, just having the nice looking images of the original art in one place is great. I love artist editions, and in this realm of comics, alternative, small press, whatever you want to call it, those are just hard to come by. Fantagraphics has put out a handful, but they just, I assume that those have a limited audience. Even for guys like Jaime Hernandez or Charles Burns, there's probably only so many people that are going to put up the money for those things. And so I would love to see more of this kind of book. Not to toot the book's horn, but just I would love to see more original art by cartoonists that maybe aren't going to command a huge audience. There's the possibility that in 20 years Fantagraphics is putting out their own Noah artist edition. It's very possible.
No,
he's shaking his head, but it is a possibility. But they have limited capacities to do things, and there's limited people that will shell out money for even in the world of mainstream comics. There've been quite a few artist editions at this point, but there still isn't a Steve Ditko. The first Neil Adams is about to come out, and these are names that you thought would have been at the very top of the list.
What is the Neil Adams one? Is it a Batman one, or is it like the Muhammad Ali Superman?
I think it's just a general DC collection.
Hope it's Green Lantern.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's going to be stuff like that. It has Batman on the cover.
Yeah. Okay.
But I
like those artisan editions where they like make them affordable.
Yeah.
You just shrink them down a bit. Mm-hmm. Those are great. I have that EC Comics one.
Yeah.
I visit it all the time. It's just so beautiful. And I wish they would do it for, speaking of Fantagraphics, the Daniel Clowes one, the studio edition one they did.
Yeah.
I wish they would shrink that down as like a artisan edition book, because
you have their number. You can call Gary and Eric and lobby them.
I mean, I feel like my only problem with those books is that they're like unwieldy. And there's nobody has a shelf that fits them. They get dinged really easily and stuff, and messed with really easily. So it's like you really have to be like the guardian of these big art objects when you get them, and then that's a whole responsibility that you just paid a lot of money for.
Like you said, the size is not easy for people who live in an apartment. I mean, how many of these things are you going to own? And the size is just prohibitive. I mean, not for everyone, but the average person isn't going like, oh, I like Jim Lee. Let me just drop $150 on something I liked when I was 15. You really have to have a passion for that particular artist or that period to pull the trigger. Hopefully this book will scratch an itch, for that kind of stuff for you.
Yeah. Sorry, I'm getting off. I'm all over the place, but
no, go ahead.
Jim Woodring told me that he has like one of those like violin, like the sheet music stands that you get. Mm-hmm. Let's put one of those giant books on there, and that way it's like just kind of there in the corner of his studio.
Smart.
Go through and look at it, throughout the day or something, because they're so you don't know where to put them.
Yeah, my dream is to have like a big coffee table where I can lay them out at some point, but I have little kids, so literally like all of my collections are hidden behind locked doors, where like or in boxes, like nothing gets to be seen anymore. So it kind of makes collecting a little bit less fun, because everything will be destroyed. Even if it's put away, they'll find it.
That's true. Yeah, they find it. I had one of those little tin Dick Tracy police cars.
Oh yeah.
My son found that when he was like 1 year old. It's like totally wrecked now. It's like
It's not a toy for you. It's a toy for daddy.
Yeah, exactly. I'm like, this is my toy. He would not leave it alone. And they just finally had to surrender. Like because he'd be asking for it. Like, I want this. I want the car. I want the green car. All right, fine, you can have it. $70. Super expensive toy.
Yeah.
It's just
Colin, were you gonna? Yeah, right.
This thing survived Prohibition era. Destroying it.
Yeah, I don't understand. We have to talk about kids the whole time, but it's like I have a toy from when I have many toys from when I was a kid that are like in pristine, and maybe I was older, I don't know, but they just bash it against stuff. I'm like, why can't you just be gentle? I was a child of the 90s. We kept everything like in its box. Like it was a collector's item. You weren't supposed to play with it. And they're just like Batmobile.
Your kids got into your Spawn Violator toys and
I do have a bunch of those. Like I have weird like X-Files, like the X-Files, the movie toys with like this clear dude that my kids love. It's always somewhere around the house, like just this like super freaky looking thing. They love all that stuff. I have all like the Ghostbuster stuff, the Ecto One, things like that. But I just have a box. I've just had to give it up. I've just had to just say, it's fine. Just rip off that arm of that Ghostbuster that I've loved for my entire life. That's fine.
I know. I have like all those too, like those Ron Ricci Jr. like Tylenol toy. Maybe you guys don't remember this, but there was this whole thing where like I think it was like Tylenol or Advil or something had a campaign where they started making these vinyl toys for Ron Ricci Jr. That was this whole campaign. It was like the Ouch campaign. Like, these are the Ouch twins or whatever. And you had to go to like all over, try to find like special color variants for them, and this kind of fun thing.
Mm-hmm.
I have them, and I have them like on the shelf here, and my son's always looking at them like, no.
Yeah,
so thin because he'll just snap them right apart,
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Colin, were you going to ask a question earlier?
Oh, probably. It's all right. So, no, you have a book coming out early next year.
Yeah.
Rufus, Beat It Rufus. Is that what the name is?
Yeah, I have Maple Terrace coming out at some point.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
But I don't know what the French edition's out, and it's like nominated for a prize and everything already. It's doing great. I don't know what's going on with the English edition. It was supposed to be out in the spring, so I'm kind of patiently waiting for any updates on that one.
How did you think Maple Terrace did? Just curious.
In the comic shop?
Yeah, just the 3 issues.
Better than what everybody was expecting. Shops were pretty stoked on it. Seems like it did well.
I felt like I saw a lot of excitement around the very few people I interact with, but I remember Sean talking about liking it. Obviously, it's kind of the same similar nostalgia sweet spot, and I saw a couple other guys with the same. I think they had that same reaction. They were just like, wow, I could read 1,000 pages of this stuff.
Yeah. I know. I people ask like, when's number 4 coming out?
There's no 4. I don't know. I think you hit like I mean, I love Maple Terrace. It's one of my favorite things you've done, and I feel like I'm starting to see for myself as I'm about to turn 40 this year, and the sort of nostalgia, like the work that you're like expressing my childhood in some ways, and I feel like that's really connects with a lot of folks, and it's exciting. The way that you're able to tell a story where it's humorous but also dealing with, I think, serious things is really compelling. Would love to hear your kind of your process about Maple Terrace as where that came from, and kind of
sorry, Colin, we'll get back to Rufus, but Tom Kaczynski runs Uncivilized Books, right?
Yes,
his book publisher. And so he published One Dirty Tree back in 2017. And we were at SPX together a couple of years ago, and we were like, well, maybe we should put like One Dirty Tree in paperback or something. And then I was like, well, I'd like to have some extra material to go in the back. You know, maybe I can like do like a forward or something. That's kind of a loaded book. And he was like, yeah, okay, we'll just like start writing some stories or something that you want to put in One Dirty Tree. So when I started writing it, like I started like jogging my memory about that period of time, which is like what I like to do is I'll just sit there with a piece of paper and just list every little thing, like you know, the cat shit on the floor, you know, everything that I can remember from that period. Just a list, you know, like we had a van, we had a Dodge van, and the key fell off, so we just called it the Dode. You know, like the Dode, just write down, you know, all this stuff, and then eventually you get to a point where you're like, oh, that's a story. I remember this. I could kind of spin something off of that, and it just kind of grows because like more elements are being added to it, like a piece of clay that you just like piling more and more stuff on top of it. And then before I knew it, it was like, this is its own thing. I can't just like attach this to the back of One Dirty Tree. That's gonna be like a double feature DVD that you see at Walmart or something. You know? So I just wrote to Tom and said, like, I think I just want this to be its own story. And I think he was doing the Craig Thompson comic, Ginseng Roots.
Oh yeah.
So he was like, we'll just do it like that. Like I'll distribute it to comic shops. And that was exciting because I'd never done that before. And yeah, he just said, okay, so if you're going to do this, I need each issue by these dates. And he just gave me like a calendar. And then I just spent the rest of the year just like making sure I had a 32-page art of that story ready to go on the date that he needed it. And that's the whole thing. You're like, this is the larger story, but then you have to figure out how to break it up into little pieces, like a three-act structure, you know? So, and then it just kind of like, there's like a magic to it that it just kind of all fell into place as I was working on it. Like by the time I was like on the last issue, I was like, oh my God, this is actually going to be good. I was like, I just put enough stuff in there. Like, yes, I need to make sure that I'm really showing how Italian New Jersey was at that time when I was growing up there. Like that's a lot of the influences and stuff. Like it was just, that neighborhood was very Italian. All my friends and everything. You know, the pizzeria and stuff that we would go to, like this is what it actually felt like. And this is what it felt like in that neighborhood with the group of kids and how excited everybody was about comic books at that time. So yeah, I don't know. It was just like this like magic stew. Like it just came together in like such a way that was like, I was like really lucky by the end of it. This is really a beautiful story that has a lot of elements in it that all kind of work together. And I'm working on a graphic novel now where I'm at the point, I'm like midway, and I'm realizing, oh, I put too many elements in here. So now I'm like getting rid of stuff because you can kind of overdo it and overcomplicate something. And so I'm really happy that I haven't shown anybody any of this yet, because then I would have to figure out how to work with everything that I put in there. And since nobody's seen any of it, I can actually take away some of these things and make it simpler and more direct. And I think that's actually going to be better for the story on this one. So, but for Maple Terrace, I didn't have that. I was publishing everything. Like I would draw the first part and be published. So I couldn't go back and get rid of anything. Like that's the way that the story is going to be. These are the pieces in here. These are the characters, you know, these are the things that happened and that they need to mean something by the end of this. And somehow, I don't know, it's all kind of came together. It's very magic.
I'll just jump in real quick. The process of reading it in a serialized way was meta to me, in that you were bringing up this era of comics that I loved, but also I was so excited to get the next issue in the mail, to the point where I was like, why isn't it come yet? Like I think it was delayed a little. I don't know what was happening, but I was like, I need to read the next issue. What is happening? It brought me back to a time where, you know, you had to wait. You had to wait until the next issue came out.
I don't know. The delay with that, by the way, was I think that he was using a Christian printer, and they had taken a lot of like exception to some of the stuff that was in
Really?
Terrace, and then in one other thing that he was publishing, that one Hellfire, the Damnation one that he did, this book.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's that. Then all of a sudden he had to scramble and find another printer. There was like a big delay with Maple Terrace. That's a weird thing that happens sometimes, I guess. But
yeah,
yeah,
it seemed to happen a lot more often back in the 80s, but
yeah, you would be. Yeah, it's surprising that happens now. But you know, seems like everybody just be like, yeah, give me the money, I'll do the work, and I won't even look at it. But yeah, they read it. They read what they're printing, I guess.
No, I remember when One Dirty Tree came out, and I actually saw you at Cartoon Crossroads Columbus that year. You did a panel or discussion, and you mentioned not really ever wanting to reprint it. And obviously you were just talking about doing a reprint of it, and you've kind of revisited that time in your life with Maple Terrace and with some other stories. Has your thinking just changed on that part of your life, that you're more willing to go back to that? Or
so I mentioned, like, yeah, we put it in paperback. I don't think I would do that now. I think I kind of wised up about that idea, and I think it's better to just move forward and not reprint something like that and have to then think about it again. Like, I'd rather just create something different that would talk about anything that One Dirty Tree was talking about. Like, I have other stories in mind that are autobiographical that I want to tell, but I'm a better cartoonist and storyteller now than I was when I made that book. So I have more faith in the fact that I could create something I wouldn't be so embarrassed about or like ashamed of or something later on.
Sure.
And it's hard to look at that book for me because I was just experimenting too much, and so it's difficult. It's kind of like ugly in a way, and I don't know. It doesn't, the handwriting, because I also drew it like really tiny. It's a very small book and stuff, and I don't know. I just feel like I could do something like that better now, and I'd rather concentrate my efforts on that than revisit that book. And there's enough copies of it around. I mean, people can get a copy if they want. They're relatively cheap.
Well, given what you just said and the fact that we've been putting together this art book of your stuff, kind of a mid-career retrospective or midlife retrospective, if you want to be morbid, do you feel that you just talked about getting better? You don't brag very often, so you're saying something positive. Do you feel like you're at your peak powers now? Do you feel like you've fully come into your own as a cartoonist?
I'm better now than I ever have been, for sure. I know that I'm always getting better. I have more confidence in like creating an image, yeah, if I could show you the stuff that I just did like last week, I'm like really stoked on. I'm just like, wow, holy shit. Like at the end of the day, I'm like, that's awesome. Like I just pulled that off and I didn't even break a sweat. And that's something that I know that if I would have shown my younger self that drawing, I would have been like pretty freaked out by it. So like I think I'm getting better at it and stuff. And I know like I'm more confident in my storytelling now where like I'm at I don't know. I don't want to sound like a jerk. If I read other cartoonists' stories, sometimes I'm at a point now where I judge how they pulled it off. Like I go like, that's not a good way to do that. And I never would have done that, even a few years ago. But I feel like more confidence in like my storytelling abilities now that I'm like, I can see what people are doing and like how they're doing it, and I dissect it better and think of a better way to do it and stuff. But that's relatively new.
Sean, you've been repping Noah for, I guess you've only been doing this for 3 years. It seems like so much longer to me.
It does.
So you've had Noah for a couple of years now, probably, give or take. How do you feel about that? Do you get these originals in the mail, and I mean, I know you've been blown away by some of these batches of art you've gotten, and so have I, because sometimes I'll see them.
Sometimes you buy them. Yeah.
Sometimes I buy them, but sometimes I see them just on your site or you share them early, and I go, shit, where was this? And I mean, how do you feel about the growth just in the last couple of years of working with him?
I mean, I love every era of your work, Noah. I think, you know, the collection of Blammo 1 through 5, I think is such an interesting read to compare that to what you're doing now. And I think it's so interesting how you sort of present yourself in those early Blammos as well, and to see you kind of grow into your own and see the beginnings of what I think, you know, you're a master at now. I'll say, you know, I love all the art that comes in. I think I've done a few like unboxings of Noah's art way back in the day. There are always these pieces that I don't know how you get better with each batch of art that comes in. Some of the splash pages that I've seen, and some of them are on the website. That reminds me, we should talk about the history of comics. I think that story that you sent me the original art to. Someone asked a question about it, but those pieces are fantastic. They're some of the best pieces that I think that I've seen so far of Noah's work. But it's interesting, even. It's interesting what sells and what stays a little bit longer. I think folks, you know, in the stereotypical original art market, they're interested in the splash pages. They want the big fancy pieces. They want the
storytelling page, you know, the kind of like meat and potatoes, like let me move the story along kind of page they want.
Which is what I've always been interested in. And I was so excited a few months ago. There's a story, I think it's in as a cartoonist, but from something else. But it's a story where Noah, you're at the end of the story, you're doing an interview or at a panel, and someone asks you the question of, you know, or says like you're not great at endings or something like that. And you're like, what are you talking about? You're an asshole or something. And then it just fades to like empty boxes at the end. And that may be my favorite Noah Van Sciver page of all time. You know, like 6 empty boxes, because it's so indicative of kind of that caricature of yourself. It's so indicative of your humor. It's so indicative. It's like a very meta kind of page. And I just love everything about it. And it finally someone bought it a few months ago, and I was just so ecstatic that it got picked up. But I think, you know, for as beautiful as your splash pages are, those story pages are just so fantastic. It's really cartooning at its best. And, you know, I think, you know, we've slowly, the prices have creeped up on Noah's work over the years. And, you know, I think not everyone can afford some of those pages, but, you know, those are some of my favorite, are just the pure kind of narrative driven, you know, especially when you're in it, Noah, those are my favorite, getting into hijinks. I actually, you know, it's so funny. I was just in Paris, and I was, most excited to go to the catacombs because of the splash page I sold, where you're like visiting the catacombs, and you run out. There's like a kind of like, I call it like kind of a Scooby-Doo page, where it's over the top of the catacombs, and you're with your buddy running through it with like ghosts and stuff going around. I was like, I'm in a Noah Van Sciver. I'm in the catacombs thinking about a Noah Van Sciver story.
In real life, when I was down there in the catacombs, it was me and this guy named Matthias, who works for my publisher, and we were down there, and then we ran into somebody. It's just us, and the person we ran into was Nicole George's, the cartoonist. It's the fucking weirdest thing. Like, we're both. How the hell do we bump into each other down here underground, like underneath Terrace? It was like really amazing. Such a weird thing. If I could have found a way to like include that so it wasn't like awkward in the story, I definitely would have. We were both like, "What? What are you doing down here?"
Amazing.
I think what happens is that, because I remember. Okay, so I really wanted to be published by Fantagraphics, right? When I was younger, they were like my dream publisher, and so I was always trying to figure out how to get published by them. And they did this anthology called Mome, which in the early 2000s was like a really cool. was like the cool anthology, right? Like you wanted to be in there because they had like Anders Nilsson in there and Gabrielle Pell and stuff. And so I just started like submitting stories to them blindly all the time. And I would get responses. Like Eric Reynolds would write me back, but he would give me like really good feedback about what was wrong with my comics. Like he wasn't just saying like no thanks. He'd be like, not yet. Here's what you're doing wrong or whatever. And I think he kind of expected me to get like frustrated and just go away. But I would always like take his advice and then like write something new, kind of trying to use whatever he told me to do, and then submit that. And I just wouldn't go away. But one of the things he told me was, you haven't really found your voice yet in comics. And I remember being like, what does that mean? Like, I know what my voice is in comics. How dare you say that to me? Like, but now I can see, like, in retrospect, like he's right. Like I didn't really know. I was just trying to do what I felt like would get me in there with Fantagraphics. And I think like over the years, I found what my voice is, and that's what makes cartooning so much easier for me now, and like makes things helps me like make like better pages and stuff, because like I know like I have like a filter. So if I'm gonna do a comic about Fatty Arbuckle, this is what Fatty Arbuckle looks like through my filter. In the same way that like Matt Groening has like The Simpsons or whatever, it's like it becomes more effortless because you understand like this is who I am. This is like my cartooning voice. This is how I write. And like any subject matter I take, I'm going to put it through my filter, and that's what's going to make it interesting. That this is like the history of the Mormon Church, like through my filter, like my artistic filter, So I remember being really offended by that, but now I can see like, yeah, he was totally right, and that's all it really is like it just takes a long time, and then you kind of develop your own voice. And a lot of that is like which door you came in through into cartooning, like which artist inspired you. Like they bring up Carolyn Cash again. It's like, how many people are like going to be getting into comics because they really love her comics, and they're going to come into it copying her work, but then they get turned on to all these other artists, maybe the Silver Sprocket or publishing or Drawn Quarterly or whatever, and then that gets mixed into their style, and then like if they keep going, like a few years later, like that style kind of turns into something totally new and individual that becomes them. And that's like, I'm sorry, I'm rambling, but that's what it is. I mean, that's what cartooning is, so yeah, I'm just a mix of like all these other artists that I really like.
Should we bring it back to Beat It Rufus? Do we want to talk about one of your next books?
Yeah. What do you have to say about that, Colin?
Well, I've seen a little bit on Instagram, but I don't really know. I purposely don't read things on social media,
Well, I kept it mostly secret. The stuff that I posted on social media isn't actually in the book.
Okay.
So that was all like a psych out. It's a totally, the book itself, nobody's actually seen anything from it. Except for Eric Reynolds at Fantagraphics, and I think Kayla E., who was the designer at Fanta.
The designer, yeah.
And that's all. And but it takes place in the Fonte Bukowski world. So if you're like a big reader of Fonte Bukowski, you'll recognize a lot of the characters in it.
Okay.
It's a very similar character as Fonte, but he's instead of being like a wannabe writer, he's like a washed up musician, like a guy who like had a record deal. That record deal fell apart, and he's just been still touring, trying to get another record deal ever since then. Like he's never given up a dream, but he's like he's old now, so he's got a lot of bitterness to him. Mm-hmm. So like, yeah. So, and it's based off of a comic strip that I did in the newspaper at the same time that I was doing Fonte Bukowski, because I was doing Fonte Bukowski on my Tumblr. And my editor at the newspaper saw that and was like, can you just do something like that for us? Stop doing what you're doing for us already and change it into something else. So like I started a comic strip called like Beat It Rufus Baxter. And then, so the character was designed to be like Fonte Bukowski. And then I always had like it was like on the back burner, like I'll get back to that and collect it at some point. And then when it was time to, I looked at everything I'd done, and I was like, I like the character and stuff, but I could do something better with the story. and so that's all. I just spent my time rewriting it, and just based on what I had done in the newspaper, but totally different.
Are you planning to do more Bukowski verse titles?
Yeah. I have another one that I wrote that's about like a documentarian. And I'm just looking for the time to get to work on that one because that's it's just too funny. So yeah.
I love there's like the Marvel Cinematic Universe, and now there's
Yeah.
the Bukowski universe.
The Fonteverse.
The what verse?
Yeah, the Fonteverse. So I could do like stories. I could do books based off any character that was in the first the Fonte Bukowski collection or whatever.
Yeah.
And
It'll just be a box set of failed artists from all different art.
Bitterness is what it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Nice.
Can I ask you, because I get a lot of questions about the history of comics art that we posted. I've sold a few pages from when I went to OAX, which is this new original art expo in Orlando, Florida. It's interesting because that scene is much more established collectors, folks who are fairly older than me. And when I would kind of walk around, I didn't table, but I had portfolios with me. Folks would drool over those history of comics pages. And I'd love to hear a little bit more about, they haven't been published yet, have they?
I just didn't have I never figured out where to put it. Like I did it based off of an essay that Maxwell Gaines had written a long time ago. Basically, it's like a promotional pamphlet to help sell, to help keep the printer running that he worked for, like a comic book or whatever, and so he was like talking about the history of comics, but this is like in the 40s or whatever when he's writing it. So there really wasn't that much history to it. It was easy to sum up, but he was like already tying it to like what the cavemen were drawing on walls and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought that was great. And I just edited it. Like I changed a lot of his essay and made it into like its own little short comic. And I drew it, as like sort of like a love letter to comics, or to cartooning. But after I was done with it, I was like, I don't know what to do with this now. I don't really know where it fits. Like, where could I put this? So I didn't do anything with it. It's just in a file on my computer.
Well, it will appear in American Cartoonist, the comic art of Noah Van Sciver.
Yeah, it'll be in there. And that's nice because I don't know. And I'm proud of it. I think because I really labored over it. I wanted to. It was a good exercise in like copying other styles and really paying tribute to the history of cartooning.
It's those pages are gorgeous, and it's interesting because obviously you have interest in mainstream comics as well, and as a original art collector representative, I'm seeing these folks who are interested in indie cartoonists doing like commissions of mainstream superhero stuff. And Noah, we I don't know, a year ago, something like that, someone commissioned you to do a Spider-Man, a recreation of a page. And I thought that turned out really well. Could you talk a little bit about like, how was that process for you? Is that something you enjoyed doing, or is it just sort of like a one-off deal? Like what were your thoughts about being asked to do that commission?
I hardly remember that. I have to be honest with you. I can't remember what the page looks like. But
I should bring it up. Let me see if I find it. But
Amazing Spider-Man Annual #1.
Every once in a while, I'll get like a commission. Somebody will say like I just before Heroes Con, I did like a Sandman, Captain Nemo from the Alan Moore book. So it's not often, but if somebody wants me to do something like that, I'll do it. And it's fun. It's just a fun exercise to take.
Would you ever, like, if they were like, Noah, we want you to do like a mini Spider-Man story, would that ever be something that would be appealing to you, or you're much more interested in working in your own, sandbox?
you talking about if Marvel asked me to do it?
Marvel, not just some dude. Like if Marvel asked you to do it.
Dude's like, I'll pay you.
I mean, maybe you would.
Yeah, like if some guy had some money. But yeah, no, I mean, okay, so like a couple of years ago, I would be like, nah, I don't want to do that. But now I'm a father, like I would take your work, man. Like, you know, I take all sorts of work. I just did a whole comic that was really painful to do, but I had to do it. You know? that's part of the job at this point. You know?
Well, I mean, Peter Bagg did a Spider-Man comic, and
yeah. Well, think about that. Like, if I could do it like that, sure. Like they were just like, we want you to just do your Spider-Man.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
I would love to do that. That'd be fun. But if I was like, you know, Tom King has written the script, I'm like, I don't want to do this shit.
Well,
you could win an Eisner for it. Yeah.
Yeah. Right. Exactly. No, I'm not interested in doing that. But if there's like another like Strange Tales anthology or like Bizarro comics or something like that, like I'm all over that. I love that.
I think those days might have passed.
Yeah, I don't think those are worth it. And I don't think they're interested in like getting alternative cartoonists to do comic books anymore, right? Like I know that Chuck Horseman did his own Spider-Man comic that was supposed to see print, and then it was canceled at like the last minute. And Ho-Che Anderson did like a Luke Cage story that was supposed to be great, and it was ready for print, and then they canceled it again at the last minute. That's just that kind of stuff happens. That's really a shame. I don't know. I don't think that there's anybody there like at Marvel or DC who expects like, oh, we'll get like a little sales boost by hiring somebody from Fantagraphics to do a Doctor Strange. Like they wouldn't understand. It's like that's not going to be a sales boost. That's just going to be a weird little thing that you did, you know. And nobody who reads this comic normally is going to be interested in seeing me take it on. You know? Anyway, that's my opinion. I don't know.
Yeah. Just need a Jim Lee variant cover over top of it, and wouldn't matter. Wouldn't matter who's doing it.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I don't know.
So you heard it here first. Noah would be vaguely interested in taking us.
Yeah. I'm just talking crap, but like, yeah, absolutely. Give me money. I want money.
Yeah. Do you I know we touched on this a little bit in our Felix talk, Sean, about like commissions and commission lists, because obviously Felix has like an entire machine going over there with all of his artists. And you've done that with Tilly Walden. You had a short list. I mean, is that something, Noah, that you would do? Is that something
what is it
would want to do?
A list?
Well, like opening up a commission list saying, hey, I have 10 spots for Noah Van Sciver.
Oh,
here's what the prices are. You pick your subject if he agrees to do it, because I mean, I think Sean was, I mean, obviously Tilly has a distinct audience, but I think even you were stunned at how quickly they went and how high the demand was. It really seemed kind of like all of a sudden they were gone, and
they weren't cheap either. I mean, they're cheap in like the commission, like high end commission world, but
compared to some of Felix's guys, yeah, sure.
I think part of it is it's so rare, like it doesn't happen very often, and for those of you who maybe are not as into collecting original art, a lot of modern art spaces are doing commission lists for folks, and I think particularly for exciting up and coming artists, it's a really great way to kind of build out your audience a little bit, because you can share all of those commissions on social media, as well as bring in some income. I think we talked a little bit about this the last chat, but the challenge in this space is that folks have so little time to devote to something like that, and sort of so you need the audience, you need to find a price point that makes sense for the cartoonist, then you got to find that like pocket of time for someone to do it. So like Tilly took a week off from doing her Clementine 2 maybe, or Clementine 3, and was like, I just want to, I'm having a baby, I want to make a bunch of cash very quickly, let's see how this goes. And it was really, really successful.
You said she had a baby?
She had a baby. Baby's almost...
She had a baby?
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Breaking news. No shit. Wally's turning 1 in October.
Wow, amazing. I had no idea.
Yeah.
Well, that's great. Yeah, you've never asked me about doing a commission list. So
well, I'd be curious to hear. I'll stop talking in a moment, but it's never been something that I thought that Athenium artists would be that interested in, and I wasn't sure what the audience would be. And now I've brought on, we talked about this as well, but Matt Allison, who kind of is in the indie space, but is very well known for doing commissions and these beautiful pieces. And so I'm starting to think a little bit more about it and how we can strategically kind of, benefit both collectors because they get to, have their dreams come true through the artists, but also bring in some funds for the artists. Some artists don't like doing commissions because you have to, within reason, you kind of have to do what the collector is interested in, having you produce for them. And that's not always an enjoyable experience for everybody. Tilly, when she went into it, she was like, I'll do anything really. With other folks, we have much more sort of like, these are the guidelines for what we'd like to do. Give me your top 3, things that you'd like know what to do, for instance.
I'd do it. That'd be fun. I had an experience like that a couple of weeks ago where somebody wanted me to do a Tintin drawing, but didn't give me any kind of specifications. They said, I just want you to do Tintin. So I was like, all right. The only Tintin book I had was that one with the mushroom on the cover. I can't remember what it's called. And I'd seen Charles Burns had done that riff on that drawing before. I was like, oh, that's cool. I'm going to do something like that. And then I did it and sent it to him, and then he sent it back. Didn't want it. Said he wanted a refund.
What? Really?
Yeah, he said it was phallic, and that particular Tintin story is anti-Semitic. But I've never read it, so I don't know. But phallic, I don't know. I didn't think it was that phallic.
So that's what's nice when you have an art rep to deal with those sort of interesting interactions. And
tell that guy to eat shit.
I've got it here against my wall. I posted it on Instagram. Like, this is that rejected commission. Crazy. The first time it ever happened. I like the drawing, but it's just, you want to put something that looked like a dick on his wall.
It's so I can never. I can't imagine being a person who would say, no, send it back. I want a refund. Like, right. I've gotten commissions I'm not as like super excited about, but I'll just not commission that person again. Just crazy. I
exactly. Yeah.
I mean,
also that book is anti-Semitic, but you're still a Tintin fan.
Yeah. Well,
I mean, like, Tintin is racist and.
Doesn't every Tintin have like some kind of like weird racist thing?
Story?
Pretty sure. Yeah.
Wasn't he also kind of a Nazi collaborator too?
Too soon.
I think he sort of went with the program a little too much.
I don't know. I've never really read any Tintin. I have to be honest. Like I just
watched the cartoon
eventually, but I haven't. So we just have the one, and that's just because my wife is English, so she grew up with that stuff. But we have like one that's all kind of tattered, and it's got the mushroom on the cover. What are you doing? Like, that's not. It's a mushroom. It's a dick. Yeah. What are you doing? You're walking around outside. You've seen dicks everywhere.
Noah will only take on phallic commissions going forward.
Anyway, sorry guys.
No, this is a wonderful conversation.
Batman, I'll do a bunch of Batman drawings. I'll do a bunch of Star Wars drawings.
I've talked about with other artists in my space, in our spaces, like, bringing attention to them by drawing some of those mainstream comic characters or pop culture stuff. I think there can be a danger to being too associated with that as kind of your thing. Yeah. But sometimes all it takes is some social media post to go viral, and you get a bunch of eyes, and everything's kind of word of mouth. You hear how these kind of weird, like, how did you do that cover for that book? Well, someone saw this thing and they told this other person. So, like, for me, it's how do you break through the clutter of, like, so many images, so many things. What's kind of interesting? Well, you know, a Noah Van Sciver Batman is, I think, far more interesting than seeing the same Batman images that we've seen for forever. That's sort of like your take on it would be really interesting to me. So maybe we should we'll open a commission list. Although you have another kid on the way, so maybe it's not the best time for this.
So, yeah, I know. I feel like I'm planning on. So the baby is due on Wednesday, so I'm like,
oh shit.
I guess I'm gonna just take like 2 weeks off basically, and just do the dad thing and take care of my wife and recovery and stuff, and then try and get back into work after that. I think that's how it goes.
Wow.
So yeah, I'm gonna stay away from the drawing board for the next couple of weeks and try and figure out like what the new normal is here at the house. Get back into the rhythm of things, but yeah, it's weird.
Yeah. Amazing.
It's weird. I got work to do, but what are you gonna do?
It's good to spend time with the new one. I mean, this isn't a chat about kids, but you know, your job, I think, in some ways with the second kid is spending time with the first kid. Yeah.
Oh, and me and my son Remy, like we're best friends. Like we do everything together. This kid, we're crazy. So I'm really excited for him and for me. Like we're already like all three of us together, us guys hanging out in the house. It's gonna be so much fun.
Take Remy to some shows in the future. That's my dream, is like to take Athena and Atticus to some small press shows so they can, I don't know, give me an excuse to leave early.
I'm building a team. Like these guys are going to work for me.
It's going to be like
Will Eisner, you know.
Will Eisner, yeah, doing the backgrounds and stuff.
So
So in this decade of Noah's career, you can see that only the main character is his style, and the rest of it is.
This building was clearly drawn by Remy.
Well,
that'll be for the next art book. So
yeah, exactly.
All right.
Should we start wrapping up, Colin?
I think so too. So. I appreciate you guys coming on today, and Sean letting me be involved in your celebration. And Noah has now been interviewed for this book. He's had to come on this channel, and apparently he's going to have to talk to me in Philadelphia. So he'll be
it'll be so much fun.
Sick of me by the time we're done.
Oh, we're gonna have a great time. And thanks for your help with that, Colin. It's really great. And Sean, thanks for setting up the show. It is a dream come true for me. I'm really looking forward to it. I can't wait to do it. So yeah, I mean, I owe you guys. Thank you.
No, not at all. We're really happy to be part of it.
When the show is going to be Friday, October 11th. Again, it's right the eve of the Philly Comics Expo as well. So come out for that, and then the next day you'll have a lot of fantastic independent small press folks as well to kind of check out too. So it's a whole weekend affair. But we're hoping for a big crowd. So tell your friends. Yeah. And we're still kind of talking through some of the details. We may have some of the art books for sale at Partners and Son. If not, they'll be available on one of our websites. But we'll do a big announcement when that's all ready to go. So it's a beautiful book, Colin. I think. Colin is not great at celebrating himself, but I think the work that you have done through Canon, as well as this book and your YouTube channel and your Twitter presence back in the day, I think you are such a champion for these spaces, and we need folks to talk about these books. We need folks to bring light to some of these cartoonists that are producing amazing things. And I think what you're doing is really special, and I feel lucky to be part of it. I saw the Athenium logo in the art book, and I was like, I sent them scans of art. I take full credit for this book, but Colin, I think you're amazing, and I'm excited. You kind of downplayed it a little bit, as you all are just kind of figuring it out as you go along, but like there's so much skill and attention to detail and love of Noah and comic art and you know what these spaces used to be, where we used to talk about art, talk about comics. It's just a beautiful thing. So thank you, Colin, for all the work that you've put into these projects. And I'm excited because I feel like you'll probably do more books in the future.
Well, I guess I'll tag this at the very end as a plug for the diehards to get all the way through this video. Right around the exact same time, we will actually be putting out another book, Canon Annual 2024, devoted to the Comics Journal's top 100 comics of the century. Features a cover by Mr. Noah Van Sciver in homage to the Seth cover that appeared on the issue of the Comics Journal that the list appeared in. Noah's cover is amazing. And
you interviewed Gary Groth in that, right?
Yeah, I have interviews with Gary Groth, Seth, Eric Reynolds, the other journal writers who are living. 3 have sadly passed, but I tracked down these academics, all far flung across the North America, and yeah, I mean, I dig deep as I can with my meager skills. I mean, we look into this, so it's going to be it's grown and grown. It's actually going to be probably just slightly bigger than the Noah book.
Oh, that's so cool, man! I'm excited for it. I already saw some people talking about it. Somebody sent me like some stuff on Instagram about it. Like I hadn't even seen that you were advertising it, and that's how I knew. It was like, oh, you like interviewed Gary Groth for this, like about that issue of the Comics Journal or something. In that.
Yeah, the back cover of the new Canon has an ad, and and that's really all I've done. It's just put it on there, and it is on the Big Cartel, canonzine.bigcartel.com for pre-order. Pre-order is a cheaper price. It'll be more later. Oh. So anybody who wants it, buy it now.
I gotta buy it.
Who did you talk to, by the way? Did you talk to Rick Marshall?
No.
Okay.
Who did I talk to? Gary, Eric, and Seth. Robert Boyd.
Oh, wow.
Charles Hatfield. Bart Beatty.
Damn, man.
And Ray Mescalato, who were all writers for the journal all through the 90s. And they all contributed lists to this list that was blended together by the late Tom Spurgeon, who I know Noah was friends with.
Yeah.
God, I really wish I had met Tom Spurgeon. I admire that guy so much, and I wish he had been around to talk to. And we'll be reprinting everyone's individual lists. And that had them to offer. Tom Spurgeon and Bart Beatty had held theirs back, so they're not available. But I even have a list Seth made for the journal that wasn't used, and a list that Eric Reynolds made that was they disqualified because he was the PR guy for Fantagraphics.
Oh, really? Oh, man.
But he dug it out of deep storage on his computer for me, and agreed to let me reprint it. So yeah, that'll be some stuff that we see.
That's gonna be so cool. I can't wait.
Yeah, thanks for letting me ramble on about that. I'm excited about that project too, and Alex and I have been grinding hard on these 2 things at one time, so it's we're both very excited and somewhat relieved to be almost done. There you go. There's Noah's cover. It's going to be in color, by the way, a color
Beautiful.
cover. It'll be a soft cover book. We haven't quite figured out where that's being printed or whatever, but it might be the same people printing the Noah book. We'll see how it goes. So
I'm excited for the eventual collected Canon in hardcover as well. That's what I want to see. I want to give you more work to do, Colin.
I'm sure there's a huge demand for that. Forgerelli here, who's been in the chat the whole time. Thank you, Forgerelli. Is there a pre-order for the Noah book? Not yet.
Not yet. We'll be screaming it everywhere on social media. So follow us if you aren't already.
And on YouTube, we'll I'm sure put out little videos or something to try to promote it.
I'm going to promote something real fast, guys.
Please do.
John Stanley, Little Lulu's Pal Tubby. Find a copy. You'll love it.
You heard it from the man himself.
On that note.
All right. Thank you, guys.
All right.
Thank you all.
See you later.
Bye-bye.